Hello and welcome to the ID update. That's right, we're back
Hello,
after
hello.
a totally planned and intentional hiatus last month. It wasn't just a last minute forget and then, oh, wait, hang on. Oh, we promise.
I can take some of the blame for that because I had a little bit of an eventful that month anyway, so I'm kind of thankful that we weren't around.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that it's like we realized we'd forgotten and then we're like, oh no, that's so sad. But it's nice to be back. Thank you for joining us. Quite a lot to talk. Well, I say quite a lot. Maybe it'll be a shorter show, but I think some good topics to talk about this week. Adobe did something, like an actual
They
thing.
did something. I'm actively looking at what they did and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, no, that's exciting stuff. I think we need to revisit. It's been a couple of months. So revisit some of the things we spoke about last time around AI and VR and some of the other acronyms flying around the industry. And of course, anything you bring to the conversation. So please do get into the chat, share your thoughts. If you've got a burning question, something you're thinking about a lot at the moment, let us know. Let's make that part of the discussion. But hello to Kara and Olga, two long-term viewers with us at the start. Thanks so much for joining us. But before we get into this properly, let's roll that intro. There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT. Cool. Last time I said I think I might revamp that. I think I will revamp that. We could do with a new intro.
Oh, yeah, I remember we did talk about that.
Yeah. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I just look at it now and think, oh, I could do better. Oh dear. So it's been a month. How have you been?
I've been good. I've been very busy, but for not the normal reasons. Usually
Yes.
I like being busy for work reasons, but I am now busy for baby reasons as we had our first daughter on May 14th on Mother's Day. So again, when I say I'm thankful that we took a little bit of a break in May, I'm real thankful we took a little bit of a break in May. And I was even a little late to this because I had 10 minutes. I was like, oh, I'm going to pop in, spend some time about looking at some of the topics we're going to talk about. And then kiddo decided to do things. We'll go with we had to race against the clock there.
Oh dear.
I'll keep it classy.
Absolutely. But that's exciting, right? It's lots to look forward to.
Yeah, like when we're not up at 3 a.m.
Yeah, like sleep and
like you would know. You're up at 3 a.m. anyway.
By
That's normal
choice.
for you.
No one screams at me. Well, occasionally, but only when I've done something wrong. It's more justified, I would say. So yeah, no, all changed then. That's exciting stuff. And I forgot to ask at the beginning, and join in this conversation in the comments. What are you drinking during the show today?
What am I drinking? Oh, come here. So I was trying to think of like how far do I want to go, and I'm not gonna go. I didn't want to go too crazy, so I'm going tried and true as summer is on the way. And it's also important to understand one. I've changed the setup again. Actually, I'm now in a different part. I had this last time. But the nursery is also very bee themed for Buffy is their nickname. So I'm going with good old Beehive honey wheat. One of my favorite little summer honey wheat beers from Bristol.
Very nice indeed.
Just easy drinking. I'll be done with it by like a half hour.
That's fine. We really will go for a short show then this time.
Let me just put that in the old quarter jar.
Yeah. I was sent a very nice box of bottles of red wine by a client that I finished working with in January. Ooh. And decided to have open. Not going to drink a whole bottle of wine. That would be somewhat insane, Friday night or not. But I have a couple of glasses of that tonight, so that'll be nice. Very classy. It's a classy show when the red wine's out. It's
Well, I've got mine. Looks like just a classy lager.
there we
So,
go.
so
And,
cheers to you.
and to you.
Boom, clink. Down we go.
And as we always say, do let us know in the comments what you're drinking, whether it's alcoholic, non-alcoholic, whether you're not drinking anything. Perhaps you're having dinner while you listen to us. In which case, I'm sorry, it's not really great dinner conversation, is it?
No.
But so I guess I want to kick the show off actually by talking about a video that I posted earlier this week on the channel.
I was wondering if you were going to talk about. I assume I know which
Yeah.
one you're talking about, but
There's only been one.
okay.
I tell you what, since I started my new job, it's like I should really do a video for the channel. It's like, no, I need to sleep.
I know that feeling.
Like, I'm back into that point where I'm just about in enough new stuff. It's always slightly over the top of my neck, it feels like. So swimming very hard to stay afloat as I get to grips with new stuff. So yeah, videos have somewhat taken a backseat, but more I've got a couple now that are filmed and need to be edited. So over the coming weeks, there'll be, a video a week, that kind of thing. But the video I put out then is about IDTX. And we don't often do this about kind of like it's not so much a cross promotion piece because it's a short video. It's an awful video. That's what happens
your
when you edit in
channel.
Camtasia.
It's not even a cross promotion. It's a promotion.
Yes, but yeah, it's I look at these as something a little bit different. But yes, so basically the video just outlines kind of some decisions we need to make around whether or not there'll be an IDTX 2024. In short, I can't afford to foot the bill. For what it's become. A couple of hundred people was kind of fine, but I mean, this last one, in terms of like booked seats, we had like 1,650.
Jeez.
This is it. And thing is, like at peak, at any one time, only about 600 or 700 people were there in the platform live. But that still added up to an awful lot on an events platform. Yeah. The kind of the end bill was significant before I accounted for time off work to do it. So it's a great event. It's phenomenally fun to do. I don't want to stop doing it altogether, but we need a better way of doing it. So I would just ask if you've got time. In that video, I put forward like 5 ideas of what we could do. Just let me know in the comments there what you think. If you've got an idea of how to make it work or not, then let me know. But I don't want to kind of reiterate the whole thing. I'm just keen to get people's input because the events got popular. I don't want to ruin that, but at the same time, it's I'm not rich. Do I have a link to that video handy? I will get one while we're discussing the next thing and share it in the chat. Let's have a look. Let's go to YouTube and see if it'll let me go to my own channel. I will drop a link now, but Joe Suarez has also dropped a video about Captivate. So that's very exciting. Beat me to it. Look at that. Speedy Gonzalez.
Anytime as we do that, it's also we should be like, hey guys, you should go buy merch. There you go. Just get the merch stuff back up at buymeaconference.com. Coffee.com. Buy me a coffee.
I love it. Yeah. No, and this is the thing. Like in terms of running it, like kind of tried the crowdfunding approach of like the Patreon and the merch, and it kind of it helped for that kind in the second year, especially. There was a real sort of uptake in that. Then that died off, and it didn't really come back for the third one. So I'm not, and I get why. Like it's difficult, right? I think it's fair to say, especially at the minute, everyone is, perhaps not as wealthy as they once were. And even if you are, tomatoes still seem to cost as much as a small car. So it's a tricky time. And so to pitch an event like that, you've got the dual situation of people are rightly so, not willing to spend a huge amount of money to attend conferences right now. Certainly in the UK, I've noticed some prices come down in terms of attendance, and actual attendance go down as well. And businesses are less willing to throw money at sponsoring events. Again, understandably, they've got to be more careful
Yeah.
with money, and they know fewer people are going to them, therefore they have less value. But simultaneously, you start getting a lot of sponsors into events. Sponsors, even the best sponsors, want something out of a sponsorship, right?
Right.
I know that everyone's, oh, we sponsor this to kind of improve the industry and generate goodwill. It's like, yeah, but why are you generating goodwill? So you can sell your stuff, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's what sponsorship is, you know.
We're gonna spend that kind of cash. I need people to be there to actually recognize that I am in fact spreading goodwill also.
Exactly. It can't actually be about that. It's got to be about advertising or pitching or something of that. So it's how do we get the right balance? And that's right. There are some other ideas in that video as well about do we just call it a day? Do we say, hey, 3 fantastic events, but that's enough? Or do we go for a much lower cost model and say, hey, look, we run it here on YouTube as a live event? To completely, we lose all the platform benefits and all that kind of thing, but is that what people would prefer to see? So yeah, just really a request. So if you're watching this but haven't watched that, check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to hear your ideas. But video and IDTX promotional piece over.
It wasn't really much of that. Was a sad promotion of
it's not sad. It's just
it might be done.
Yes, yeah. We need to find a way forwards on that front. And the way forwards is not going to be me taking out a loan. So so let's jump into one of the bigger topics. Joey, any preference where you want to start?
Given I'm as we're like I'm as I mentioned, I was a little late because Buffy had her thing, but what I wanted to do with some of the time, because I've been really busy today with her and other things, is I wanted to explore Adobe a little bit as they did a thing. So I'm kind of actively doing that right now as we're talking. So one, I don't sound like as big of an idiot as I would expect to be. But two, it's also kind of interesting. It's interesting. So let's start with something that's a little we'll go with captivating, because I'm a dad and I get to make stupid puns now.
Wow.
Dad puns. Adobe Captivate new version, I think is what they call it. It's 2023, but they're like new version or classic. Project Charm has come to fruition. I don't think this was Charm.
I don't know.
It
seems to be, because the UI matches. Like the Charm teaser videos match this UI. But
right, so I guess look it up. Hey guys, Adobe did a thing.
Yeah,
we've got a new Captivate. That's not the same Captivate, but they've made the default font different or something stupid. There's a whole new UI. There's a lot of new features. There's a lot of as I'm looking at it, there's a lot of automations and layout, which I actually kind of really appreciate.
Yeah.
A lot. There's hilariously like a fantastic, it's not like a fantastic image editor per se. If you're familiar with like doing image filters and storyline and whatnot, it's kind of the same thing, but it's nice to see they're leveraging some of their Photoshop tech. It's nice to see, like, I've only been playing with this for literally about 10 minutes because it took me 5 to realize I need to double click to change text. Not happy with that. But one of my biggest gripes with the original Captivate was because it wasn't based off of anything that Adobe did. It was more closely based off of Macromedia's director.
Yeah.
When Adobe bought Macromedia, and for you people who don't know what that was Flash, and it was Flash. It was it. It was an oh my god, an authoring tool alongside Adobe. And that was a lot more. It was used a lot more for web graphics and things like that. So when Adobe bought Macromedia, one of the platforms they had was called Director, which was very, very similar to what Captivate was, which was functional and also so not user friendly and miserable and bad. And it always blew my mind that Adobe had a tool in Captivate with the worst graphic defaults known to man. I worked retail for a while, and those were better. Like, those machines were better. So it's really nice to see this new version and see them bringing in, even just bringing in their Photoshop tech, even just their image editor things of, I can do overlays and I can do blending modes, and I can make anything any color I want. And I could do I never thought I'd appreciate being able to just blur something really easy. But now I'm thinking about, like, for states and overlays, I'm like, huh. I like this. I will say, because I only have 10 minutes on it, so I can't say I'm an expert per se, but I can say from even just the little bit I see that they're trying to do as I've tried to move around some assets and whatnot, this might not suck. This might not be a laughing stock for every ID update. I don't know. I don't know if you had more chances, more time to play around with it going forward, though. So if you are infinitely more experienced, I'm gonna click some buttons if you want to talk about if you've played with it.
Yeah, so I mean, some of you, at least kind of you, Joey, and Kara may have got a bit of insight to this last night. I didn't have the easiest time in the world installing this software. In fact, like, I consider myself to be fairly, tech-minded. I had to contact customer support to get them to help me install it. That is not a good first bit of this journey. The reason, as it turns out, is that if you, told the truth and said, hey, I'm in the United Kingdom, you would be given the download files for Classic. Because apparently those of us who live over here in Blighty don't need modern technology. We couldn't possibly wrap our tiny tea-addled minds around the fantastic experience in the new Captivate. Now, to be entirely fair, someone clicked the wrong button when setting up the website and probably got a royal barking for it. And I have to say that the customer support agents on live chat were phenomenal, but genuinely outstanding service. So, it's kind of that I'm trying to do that classic kind of, it's not about the problem, it's how the company deals with it. They acknowledged the problem. They told me exactly what the problem was. They didn't lie to me, and they fixed the problem for me. So that's great.
Didn't say, "Oh, you're British." Yeah, no, we don't trust you with new technology.
This is
just like God doesn't trust you in the dark, which is why we get the
the flip side of that is
sunrise.
What does disturb me slightly is that nobody tested the website prior to the launch of their new tool. Not one person apparently thought it was worth checking that.
Or they can say with confidence, "Made in America."
Okay. This is it, because if you don't live there, you ain't having it. However, I have to admit, the fact that they haven't killed Captivate as it was. They have kept it as Captivate Classic. Because at first I was like, what the hell is the point in that? I found the point real quickly.
Oh?
So they've changed something, and I think this is the kind of thing where I don't think many people are going to talk about it. Because it's only sort of nerds that are going to really get excited about it. One of my biggest
Welcome to the ID update.
Well,
Let's talk about how we built computers a couple of months ago.
Pretty much.
Right,
so, one of my biggest gripes of Storyline is that it's a 32-bit program. Yep. So it's really, it can't make use of high-end compute at all. Very limited number of cores it can leverage, usually 4 to 6. Very limited in how much RAM, usually 8 gigs. So beyond that, if it's chugging, then it's going to chug, and that's that. Adding more system resources makes no difference. because it can't use
I
them.
did a couple of recordings for some team members, and one of the things I've been using over and over again is just don't preview in storyline if you can don't
Yeah.
preview on the UI if you can avoid it, and that's one of the reasons.
This is it. It is not helpful, especially when so much content now is using kind of media rich interactions, videos, audios, really nice graphics. File sizes are getting bigger, and they just have that. It's becoming more and more of a problem. And it was a problem in like Captivate was always better than Storyline because Adobe just had a more up to date approach to creating software. It's as simple as that. However, this new one, I tested it out last night. Bunged just tons of stuff, basically apps, just every file I could get my hands on into this bit of content. So it was a dreadful bit of design, but it ended up utilizing over 32 gigs of RAM and 12 of 16 computer cores. For me, this was just like, yes, it's scaling. It needs more resources, so it's taking them. So even though I had sort of like 30 slides, each with a 4K video on it, program was fine. Didn't chug, just took the resources it needed to run as it should.
That's awesome. Like I've been clicking and doing like some previews. I'm like, oh, like even the scale ups and the pop ups and all the little transitions, they're just rocking and rolling. I'm like, cool. I like being able to hit the play button, have something happen, articulate.
This is it. But I think this is why it was a really clever idea to do that separation between classic and the new one, because it means that I'm going to go out on a limb here and say there is some functionality difference that's going to cause a problem if you open an existing Captivate file in new Captivate. But I think that classic one's going to give you that, chugging along where you were approach, and this new one not having to worry about total backwards compatibility has meant they can just go for it. Take the shackles off and build from the ground up, and that's huge.
I'm not gonna lie, because I've worked for a lot of SaaS companies, and I like when they do that. I've worked for some that have made the mistake of having a major UI change and just flipping the switch and not giving you the previous form, and it has always been a disaster of spectacular proportions, especially on rollout, especially when the new thing is going to be buggy anyway. There's just no fail safe, so I'm glad they have that.
Yeah, interesting. We got some great comments coming in. Haven't played with it yet, but I'm intrigued, especially since I'm getting more and more frustrated with storyline and its endless limitations to work around.
I keep again. I'm going back to I do little like Zoom sessions of just like working sessions, watch me work, and I've had to say multiple times like, so yeah, don't do this, or write down what font size you went with, because storyline is not going to care. It's going to get real bad real fast, and then they watch me. They watch why you do that. I'm still putzed around. I already know that half of my frustrations right out of the gate with Captivate is just me not actually paying attention to what I need to do. But there are elements of like it very much looks like it wants to do the WYSIWYG thing, which good. And Olga, to your point on the responsive by design, the way this seems to be looking, as far as how it's moving things around and how it's functioning, is very like Wix and Squarespace style, where boxes are clicking into place. So that way they've got kind of responsive. There's an algorithm, there's a code that kind of recognizes if something is somewhere, then this is how you'll translate it responsibly. So I don't know how much free reign everybody has for everything. That'll be one of the things I'm excited to play with, on how many layers can I do of a thing, and see what I get. But I do know right now I'm trying to just manually scale something down by clicking on it, and I've got even anchor points, and Captivate does not care. It does not care that there are anchor points that might suggest I can drag and move. I genuinely don't know what I'm missing. It's kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I would say that I think this is one of the things that I think Captivate is going to become popular again because people have become so frustrated with storyline right now. and their lack of addressing important issues.
Mhm.
However, I think there's going to be a bit of a shock because if you don't already know Captivate, Captivate feels like it should be really similar to Storyline, but
Mhm.
it's always been weirdly different in that it's an Adobe product. So if you think it should be one click, it will be at least 12. If you think this should be a simple 30-second process, you can buckle in for 5 minutes of figuring it out. Um, it's a bit like, I'd like to just do something simple in Photoshop. So there is no such thing as a simple process in Photoshop. Um, I always think they're clearly their software is very popular. I do not rate their user experience design work. I think it leaves a lot to be desired.
What, Adobe?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There is, I would argue, an extraordinarily steep learning curve to pick up any Adobe product. And until you know what you're doing, you can't do bugger all in it. Whereas in Storyline or perhaps that more that approach of things, you can kind of thrash stuff together and it'll work. I'd say in Captivate, it's much easier to completely mess something up. Always has been, I suspect always will be.
Yeah.
And whilst that is a problem in those early stages, I also think that we might get back to the world similar to where it was when I first started in L&D, where if you learn Captivate, everything else is really simple by comparison. And so it becomes the new learn this in terms of authoring tools, I should stress, learn this and then move into other things. Though I don't know what the uptake will be like inside businesses because so many have bought into Articulate. How many
Yeah,
of them
like
are realistically going
this
to
would be a
change?
whole bunch of it'd be a bunch of redesigning, it'd be a bunch of you'd be restarting from scratch, and then the other big question is, well, what exactly, how much were you really using Articulate? How much were you really using Storyline for its technical capabilities? Which, after doing it for a decade, I know that more often than not, the answer is not that much. Definitely not enough to look at Captivate and be like, oh yeah, no, this is going to help us get over XYZ curve. No, that's not a thing. We were talking about a couple weeks ago, a couple I think it was the last episode or the episode prior of like having a company that came in and just basically audited your trading stuff and said, here are things you could take advantage of, and here are solutions.
Yes.
That would be a I want to get you on to Captivate, and here's all the reasons why. But
I just don't see many businesses doing it. I mean, I suppose the one upside they've got is a lot of L&D teams have kind of Adobe Creative Cloud licenses.
Yeah.
So I could see let's streamline our tech stack. IT departments love that, and rightly so. Let's stop having, most companies are going to be what Microsoft, SAP, and Adobe are going to be their big three, as it were. Maybe Salesforce these days. But once you get past that, everything is kind of viewed as a bit of an annoyance. What Adobe can now do is go, okay, cool, we can be your learning platform provider, your creative software provider, we can be your authoring tool provider, we can also be your technical tools provider, we can be your what's it called, CSM and all that stuff provider, because they've got that whole Adobe Experience platform. They can really start to push for that kind of complete HR, customer sales, marketing, online experience piece and bundle it all together. But how many L&D teams have got the balls to say, yes, we will reauthor all our existing content from Storyline or Rise or whatever into an Adobe compatible product?
So here's a thought and here's a question of, we're thinking about it in terms of a one and done massive project all at once type of thing. Like that's how I would think it, because that would ultimately be what I would be committing to anyway. Regardless if I try to perform all of that at once and swap 100, 200 courses over whatever. But there's two things to be said about its price. Which is one, as from an individual level, oh my gosh, it's cheap, $34 a month. which is it beats 1,200. Thanks, thanks storyline. You think you can get text right for $100 a month? I'm still really bitter about how bad they are at that. But here's the second thing that I have in the back of my mind. Actually, maybe there's a third thing, which is that recruiters just throw Captivate on the job descriptions anyway. Anyway, here's what I'm thinking of though. That actually kind of makes me a little more excited about leveraging Captivate, especially for maybe kind of some newer projects, newer teams, newer training development that might not know what they want, and would think that storyline's the norm. Me, as somebody who does freelance, I can afford this license. So I can go, if I'm looking for kind of those, jobs of, hey, we're looking for an instructional designer, somebody, we've got new courses we're trying to develop and we're not married to anything, I would have no problem picking something like Captivate unless I've already got the storyline license, but I can afford this thing and I can pay for it monthly.
Yeah.
I don't remember if you can pay for storyline monthly, but
No.
I can pay for it monthly. That might do a lot, honestly.
I think it will. I think it will.
It'll take a couple of years, of course, but that's going to do some work, I think.
Absolutely.
That's what I feel.
Yeah. And I think that alongside the fact that most of those same people are already paying Adobe for that Creative Cloud license, like it's going to become a fairly obvious, yes, please. Why not? Especially now they've aligned the UI a little bit. Like it now feels like an Adobe product. Like visually, when you look at it, you can kind of go, oh yeah, that's Adobe. Whereas when you look at Captivate Classic, as it now is, you do look at it and go, I'm sorry, who made this?
Right.
It's kind of a UI. I always say it's vaguely reminiscent of MSN Messenger with the little people in it and all that kind of thing. It's got a very
I was going to go Windows 3.1 for their
vibe.
toolbars, but I could see that as well. As I'm clicking around, I already love that there's a hotkey for sync with Playhead.
Yes.
Oh my god. I cannot, because that was one of the other things. Because I'm also working on putting together a Camtasia course. And one of the things I really like about Camtasia is the use of markers. And one of the things that drives me nuts about Storyline is how not easy it is to leverage markers. You have to right click and add a thing for it. So being able to like sync with Playhead, I hope you could do markers in here. It'd be great. Yeah, you could bookmark. There's a whole bookmark thing.
Hey.
Little things. I like little things. I still don't know. I'm still trying to click on one thing and move it and work in just that one thing. And Captivate is saying no. Oh. I see you clicked on image. Did you mean everything on the screen? No, I did not.
Oh dear.
I'm still fighting. I also really like that you can designate what the image responsive behavior is.
Yes.
That's really cool. So I think for anybody, if anybody's interested in looking at this thing, and I think the best thing for you to do if you are just not quite sure what you want to be in for, like, I don't know how prepared I want to be for that, go do a free trial at like Wix or Squarespace and practice making a web page. This feels very similar to that as far as your creative restrictions. Like if you just want to get into the mindset of creative restrictions, as far as like placements and not having full control over behaviors, if you've ever made a website on any of the newer platforms, this feels very, very similar to that. Outside of that, I'm still fighting with the rest. I'm also still sad I can't click somewhere and have a visual representation of what would be on the screen at that time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's because I also can't hide things. I can't hide assets easily. If there is, I can't find it. There's no little eyeball.
And I think this is going to be the thing, isn't it? It's going to be a lot of getting used to where we expect things to be.
Yeah, I gotta take a tour. This isn't. I'm not saying like this is terrible because it doesn't have it. I'm saying I can't find it, and maybe it's somewhere that is not obvious.
So I have just in the chat shared a link to Joe Suarez's video. His stuff is always excellent, and I'm sure if he's posted this, it deserves some serious viewership heading its way. This is I do think this is going to be a bit of a shake-up in the space, because if you look over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of new authoring tools launch from small or new providers. We've had a lot of existing providers stepping into that space from platform only. We've also had a lot of like venture capital money go into this space.
Mhm.
Adobe has always been the odd one out because it is a otherwise very established technology and software company that kind of occasionally dips its foot in the world of workplace learning. Not that long ago, really, we were kind of thinking, will they just scrap it? Will they just
Yeah,
say, do
I
you know
remember
what?
because
This market is so niche. To heck with
yeah,
it.
because I also remember that people were trying to find like the beta program, and
Yeah.
that went away, and then I remember randomly it came back again for a month. I'm like, what are you guys doing? It's been 6 months.
Oh, I like Olga's question. Is there a chance that Adobe will boost Captivate with their AI features?
Oh, of course, everyone. That's all the rage now.
It's certainly all the rage, but here's an interesting question. I was going to ask this later on in the show. Maybe this is a little bit of a segue into a slightly different topic, but not long ago we had the I don't know, it's the third or fourth AI revolutionary moment, and everything that's going on is super super cool. However, I got together with a group of people not that long ago to discuss like AI and what we're going to use it for and how it's going to be useful and what we're going to do and blah 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 blah. The list was really short in terms of actual ready to go right now uses that solve a real problem.
Okay.
And I don't like I'm on record. I'm excited about AI. I do think it will revolutionize things, but I don't think, or I've yet to see anything implemented within a product that actually helps me do my job better. Like, I've seen implementations that allow me to do my job quicker and
Yeah, I was gonna
marginally
say, it's like that
worse.
seems to be what it does.
The marginally worse is kind of my issue there. Like, do you want to auto generate some text? No. Why? Because it won't be very good. Like, it will be fine, but I wouldn't accept, like, if I was signing off my own work, I wouldn't go, that's fine, and therefore is good to go to the client. No. So this isn't solving any problem for me because great, it's writing it. But you can use that to rewrite from. Right, so I'm writing it then. That's like
I had somebody want to send an email like doing like a warm intro on my behalf, and they got a response back, and he sent me the response. And I was like, I think you got Chat GPT there, buddy. I think like it's. I'm trying to think of a way to say the joke because you know the joke, the joke of like this is a meeting that could have been an email.
Yep.
I feel like the same way with some of the Chat GPT stuff that I see is like this is an email that could have been in a chat. This is an email that could have been an email,
Yeah.
like a different email. It was long and pointless, and it's like okay.
Great.
But no, I agree with you. I'm trying to think of what functions would it replace in my ID sphere.
And the thing is, like,
outside of not having to shop for specific graphics and like vector graphics thing anymore.
do you find graphic generators are accurate enough to actually use the results from?
I need them basic. Like, hey, I need guy over shoulder looking at computer. Maybe I can find it. I don't know. I haven't tried it that much. I'm talking like super basic things. I'm not.
Yeah. But was that actually a problem?
I'm coming from the space of software application development. Like that was most of my training. So I normalize and generalize a whole lot of things. But I'm pretty sure if we get into like sexual harassment graphics and whatnot, then okay, maybe it might be a little harder.
But even then, like, or even just like if it's just a general like photographic image that you want, is it any easier to search for it through an AI than going to Shutterstock, typing it in and downloading it?
Yeah, I don't have to pay for the AI one.
Of course you will.
Not now.
No, but there's a reason they're free now. They're not very good. Like Midjourney is a phenomenal piece of technology, and I use it all the time for creating D&D characters. However, the handful of times I have attempted to use it for something that's going to go in a course, it's just been like, yeah, no. So fundamentally, I can't use that. And whenever I have this, people go, "Oh, it's because you're not good enough at writing prompts yet." It's like, that's great. That's not what I do for a living. And
Right.
if I have to be a prompt engineer to use the tool, then the tool is not helpful to instructional designers.
Especially if
It's
I have to
useful to
learn
prompt
all these
engineers.
prompts to say something that's two words.
This is it. I could have searched for this, found it, and bought it in half the time that I figured out what the prompt needs to be for this AI tool.
Like, I
That's
like
not
Karthik's question.
actually helpful.
So you don't appreciate the conversion of a short, concise sentence into an eloquent two-pager. That's I can appreciate that. So,
Excellent.
and I know I brought this term up before, but there's a TV term for that exact thing that AI is now doing, which is called sesquipedalian loquaciousness. Say that one a couple times fast. I'm not going to, but sesquipedalian loquaciousness, and that's why you don't say it too many times fast, is literally the process of creating dialogue that is intentionally longer and uses larger words just to sound smarter than it actually is. This is runs rampant in like medical dramas. As a Power Rangers nerd, a great example is Billy Blue Rangers saying affirmative when he could just say yes. That's an example of that. That's what I think AI is doing.
Well, you can just watch anything written by Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Which we're actively going through West Wing, so not only do we get to hear the really long sentences, but we get to hear snippets of them repeated back and forth 7 times between the same character, before one of them just decides to appreciate that. Oh, that's what you mean.
However, just totally irrelevant. Literally one of the greatest television series ever made.
I'm really excited to introduce Sam to it for the very first time.
No, that's
magic. I've watched it like every 2 years. She's watching it first time because she stumbled on me watching it and had it kind of in the background in her brain, and she was like, "This actually seems like it'd be really interesting. I'd like to sit down and watch it sometime." And that's what we're doing right now. I'm like, give me an excuse.
But yeah, so I mean, I think they will obviously put AI tools into it. Of course they will. It's a great marketing spiel. Will they be useful? I don't know. Like a lot of the Adobe AI stuff that's been going into actual products isn't AI. And this is becoming a real irksome thing now. It seems like anything that a business is doing that is like, it's based on an algorithm, let's call it AI, even though it's not AI. It's like, why? The answer is marketing, but it's really irritating. Yeah. So I guess and that was funny. One of my follow-up topics for today was like, AI, what the hell happened? What happened to the revolution? I've just been like literally now, if I open my Chat GPT account, it's just full of, I need a D&D NPC for X, Y, and Z. The party is of this level in this scenario. What should I do? And it spits out a character for me. It's great. Or if I'm ever stuck for what spell someone should, like, it's not helpful in my actual work. Because it's the argument it was going to get more reliable has gone the other way. Like, it's got significant as the moment any of it gets access to the internet, it just cannot cope. It has no ability to even vaguely assess the quality of information that it's taking in.
I think one of the things that's turned me off, because I haven't dove so far into AI because I've always done things the hard way, which has been myself. But now I see random LinkedIn posts, and I've seen random posts about what AI tools to use for what situation. And it's like 20, 30 different tools. And I'm like, I have stopped caring. I'm so done caring at this point. Just memorizing that is going to be harder than just doing the damn thing myself. And And it's one of
And,
the maybe this is just another one of those victims of when you have technology that's so easily accessible and everybody wants to do it. The only thing that's going to happen is the quality is going to turn to garbage. Again, I would like to. Oh, I've been redecorating, so I don't have my graphic design degree with me. But I would be pointing to that and saying, "This is let's talk about what happened to that industry when everybody gained easy access to it. It sucks. We suck. Graphic design's an embarrassing industry, and has been ever since 2002.
But yeah,
But that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
That's a whole other thing.
And I think there's an issue around the number of tools in that half of them will be gone in a year.
Oh yeah,
if
they won't be
not more
updated. They won't be maintained.
No, they'll be bought or they'll collapse. Those that are offering their services for free will collapse because this is an incredibly expensive bit of technology right now. So they are burning venture capitalist money of some sort. And they're going to run out because their service is free for some unknown reason. The reason is they're hoping to mine your data, but we don't say that bit out loud.
We learned out here in the States, we learned from MoviePass that data is not nearly as valuable as you think it is.
Well, yes, but it's
their whole business model was we're going to lose money every time you use our platform, but we're going to make it all back by selling your data, and that did not last at all.
No, I feel like funny. Google kind of capitalized on the we're going to monetize your data, and they can only do it because then we've got all of it, literally everything about everyone. Haha. So yeah, it's kind of gone. But that I think that's a major problem that we're again, like you say, with all this kind of use this tool, use that tool, use that tool, use this tool. There is a reason, like we said earlier, companies limit their tech stack. It's to make them robust, because if you become reliant on a piece of technology that then disappears, you're a bit scuppered. Yeah. And that is my concern around so many of these AI tools. They are completely standalone. And most of them will be gone in a year or so.
Yeah, I mean, especially since I haven't exactly seen any of them come out and try to be a business presence more than a pet project. So, I mean, I'm not going to put an investment in something that is some random dude's thing. My IT team's going to hate me for that.
Yeah, this is it. Morgan's got an interesting one. Thinks Microsoft Copilot with access to company data and documents will be a real game changer. Yeah, I think it probably will. And I think the fact that it's there already, like if you've got Microsoft, you've got Microsoft Copilot. I think that is how these tools will survive. That's what they will all become. They will all have to be part of something else. And Microsoft, ultimately is going to take ChatGPT, do whatever else they're going to do with it around controls, slap it into Office. Brilliant idea. Yeah. Once that's come out, I don't need a ChatGPT license anymore. Phenomenal. Genuinely, that's spot on. That's exactly what it should be. Because I should be constantly reducing my licenses, not adding new ones.
Right.
And I think that's why when you look at like Synthesia have done a deal with 7taps, so that within the 7taps authoring tool, you can create a Synthesia video in a card. Setting aside the arguments about whether or not their product is actually viable, I don't think it is.
I have my thoughts on that, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I know. They kind of exploded out there with we're going to lead the way on this. And then basically went, here's the product. We went, cool. So we're expecting some more innovation and new stuff. You can expect that. But you ain't gonna get it.
As somebody who's a gamer nerd who is sick and tired of hearing next big thing and we're doing something different, only for them to realize that they just did not investigate the actual industry they were a part of before they came out and said that. That kind of crap irks me. I am still sitting here. I'm literally sitting here clicking around and fighting on trying to figure out. There's an image on one of these slides that is in a circle, is framed in a circle, and I know it not start framed in a circle, and I do not know how to get it out of the circle.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to see if I can figure this out without looking it up before we're done. It is my one stupid Captivate task.
Yeah.
Can I get this car out of the circle frame?
But I think what Keris is there is kind of exactly it. She audits her tech stack quarterly. It's nuts how much you pay for technology. Yeah, and this is it. I think this is the thing that all the excitement ignores, is just that reality piece of, if I don't absolutely need this tool, why would I pay for it? Why would I add it to my already convoluted tech stack? Like
Yeah.
Microsoft and Adobe became the two big kind of conglomerate partners. It's the same reason kind of Google has. Their business models are all based on the idea of, if you buy an Adobe Creative Cloud license, you have access to all your creative software here. You buy a Office license, you've got all your Office and productivity software here. It's about buying into these ecosystems. And all these little tools that are out there fundamentally lack that reason to buy into them, that reason to trust them. So at the minute, it's a game of who is the cheapest or free.
Right.
Which inevitably will cause these companies to collapse because they're new tech companies. So initially, they've got an absolute ton of seed money or venture capital money. They can afford to be free or free forever. Whenever someone goes, well, your account will be free forever, that's always a red flag for me.
Yeah,
It's like, that's
no,
cool. So is that free forever asterisks until our business collapses because of the number of free users we've got? Or the pay once and you have a lifetime license. I love it as someone who hates subscription models, but it's not viable for an organization that literally, the more users they have, the more processing units they need to run these AIs. Like it scales in a somewhat linear way. If I send in something, an AI's got to work on it. That means they need more processing power,
Yep.
which is mad.
Yeah, support typically stinks for the one-off tools. Yup. So beyond.
Yep, there you go. And like in the L&D space, it's kind of what e-learning brothers is, I think, trying to do, is to build an ecosystem where you buy into them and you get like 7 million authoring tools and 6 years worth of resources and all this sort of stuff. I don't think it works because they're still all just separate tools. They're just a reseller for lots of separate things. They haven't actually got an ecosystem. If they could build it all into an ecosystem, brilliant. That would work.
Well, they just need to get bought by somebody bigger.
E-learning brothers are trying to win the L&D personification of the game Risk. Yes, or Monopoly. Either one of those games, both of which usually cause an argument pretty quickly after starting. But yeah, I think it's a solid idea, but there is nothing to actually tie those products together. It needs ownership as opposed to being a reseller, I think. There we go. Got to catch them all. It's just like Pokemon. They could have a little theme song based on that. So yeah, I think that's AI. I think still has huge promise. I just don't think it's going to be any of these products. I think it's going to be clever background implementations of AI that are going to get us somewhere. Like, I think it's going to be in platforms like AI powered search. To me,
Yeah.
that's where I'm thinking that would, in terms of finding information, policies, processes, behaviors when needed, just in terms of how do I do this? AI, an AI watching you work and saying, hey, you've just clicked the wrong button. That would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to
actually useful.
I'll connect it to Camtasia stuff, the difference between their speech to text in Camtasia versus an entirely separate Audiate, which is infinitely better in every imaginable way. And I don't really care to use it because I don't have to go out there and bring it in. I'd be much more interested if I was able to just do stuff in Camtasia, do all that cool tech in Camtasia. I don't want another thing on my screen. I just want another thing on my screen. That's what I want. Give me a button. Again, I am still losing this. I don't want the car to be in a circle fight.
Oh no.
Now I don't. Now I've created another state, and I don't know how to remove that.
Oh no. Olga's got a good one here. So I'm looking forward to an AI search that will make e-learning courses with all the magic interactions obsolete. Absolutely. Like literally 100%. I was chatting to the guys at Digital Acumen who are doing really cool stuff. If you want to go and see like some really technically clever stuff, Digital Acumen doing fantastic stuff. I was chatting to them about exactly this and about how even before we get to the world of getting rid of e-learning, I want to, on a platform, be able to search. And yes, it'll search the titles and descriptions of content on my platform, but I want it to search the pieces of content. I want it to look into that SCORM file and go, oh, yeah, there's a paragraph inside that SCORM file in this course about what you're asking about. So we'll bring that course up as a result. That is the kind of thing that can only be done by a much more advanced search than what we're looking at now, which is relying on tags and the literal information you give it when you upload something. It's got to get beyond that. It's got to start really looking into the files that it's actually got on the platform. But it's a huge compute overhead as well as a sort of tech challenge, I guess. But other places have already solved it. Google does it. Google searches entire websites with thousands of pages on them and goes, yep, there's a result for that in there. And yet we haven't managed it yet in the learning world. You know, it kind of just needs to hurry up and get on. I see Kara's going good guns, writing us a song.
What are we getting?
Oh, dear.
Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, in my unemployment journey, I reached out to eLearning Bros because they were basically doing a call from everybody, and I reached out to them like 30 times, and nobody ever reached back. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll get to you. Just shoot us a message." I'm like, "No, that's not a thing, guys."
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing over there, but it's not talking to people they asked to talk to.
Yeah. Morgan's got a good point actually. Text and video editing, Premiere Pro and Resolve doing cool stuff. Haven't used it in Premiere Pro, but I know in Resolve it's pretty cool actually. That's been good fun to use. Certainly for quick edits, like getting that initial rough cut of something in, has been so much easier by just looking at the transcript and going, yeah, delete that bit. Like just for me, like I've got a thing where I'll record a section, but I'll pretty much always record it 3 times for some natural variation. And then I'll go through them and go, oh, there was a mistake there. Don't like that bit. Or why have I said it that way there? So it's made going through that super easy. So yeah, I would agree that that's cool. Delete silence. I'm not a fan of deleting silence.
I hate deleting silence. Don't delete silence.
It's so difficult. It's I can totally see how in a certain approach to video editing it would be very useful. I don't like to cut my videos too quickly, and I know it irritates a lot of people because a lot of people tell me there are too many gaps in your videos. So well, it's because that's how I talk. I like to pause for effect, to leave an impact. But you know, I find that all the automatic delete silence functions I've ever used have just cut things too tight. It becomes unnaturally kind of like for the whole video.
Yeah, I mean that depends on the context, because that kind of stuff is really good in that's good for YouTube and that's good for social media. That kind of stuff is great. That's a great use for something like that. In training, not so much. I wouldn't.
I understand. I do very little B-roll on this channel, but in other work, that's exactly my problem. I like to, in like a 5-minute video, there's a pretty good chance that in my first edit there'll be like 2 to 3 minutes of B-roll for music, and it usually gets cut down pretty dramatically. But I feel like sometimes the automation of some of this stuff in the editing process doesn't lead to an inherently bad video, but it does curtail the development of the editor in terms of their like creative vision of what the edit could be. Because if the minute you get your recordings in, you're like delete silences and do this and do that and da 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 da, you're immediately closing the door to having that in there because you're cutting it without even looking at it. And that to me, I don't know. I guess it depends how you view video editing. Do you view a video editor's role primarily as the functional task of editing a video, or do you view it as a creative task of taking video assets and using them to tell a story?
That's I call that video composition, video assembly. Like I don't call Camtasia video editor. I call it video composer
Yeah,
because
but it's
that's what
in
I look
terms
at
of
it.
the
It tells a
yeah,
story.
but in terms
I
of the
need that stuff.
person,
Mm,
for most of us, we are not in the lovely position to have a rough cut editor or composer and an actual video editor.
mm,
Usually it's the same person, right?
right.
Like old school, yeah, you'd totally get your director and your rough editor sat on an Avid machine cutting your film together. Then you'd send it to your final pass editor to make it lovely. But for most of us, realistically, we shoot our video of us, then we compose our video of us, then we edit our video of us, and then we
Mhm.
awkwardly post it and hope people don't tell us how much they hate us. Uh, it's you know, so for me anyway, I do feel like it can sometimes crush the creativity out of the editing process. But I also know lots of people who create video and do not enjoy the editing process at all. So for them, awesome, you know.
Yeah, I mean that was me for a while. It kind of depends on what it is, what you're doing, but I don't know. If you're gonna swing the needle in some direction, I don't know if I there's certain mundane tasks when it comes to video editing that I don't know if I would want AI to take out. Like I don't know if I would want some universal thing for that. And again, I'm saying this. It's probably just because it's mine, because it's just the stuff I do. I
Mm.
sometimes need silence to move an arrow across the screen, or to have somebody wrap their mind around a piece of text that I have highlighted, or to say, "Hey, my audio is done, but I'm going to let you absorb this thing before I move on." I don't know. I feel like this is one of the, we were talking about it when we were talking about AI, of where AI forces innovation by taking away the mundane things and also kind of pointing out the flaws. And this is one of those where I feel like that would point out one of the flaws. I feel like AI taking over what somebody would consider to be mundane and miserable in the video editing process will also point out how crappy those things are and get people thinking about, all right, maybe I need to find a balance. But that's
Mm.
me.
Yeah,
That's how my brain works.
so I guess just to kind of round it off, specifically looking at the L&D space, setting aside our kind of more creative endeavors, I am really excited about the possibility of search, but increasingly aware of the fact that no one that I speak to is doing anything about it. Because I guess we have a really good search is not a particularly sexy marketing point, is it? Uh,
No,
like
no.
it's the
You
best
got rid of
search.
Lycos. You got rid of Fetch, the dog, and that was the end of search marketing.
This is it. The day Ask Jeeves went away was the day I just kind of went, well, that's Google then. That's so. Other than that, specific to L&D, what problems do you think AI can actually help us solve?
I was sold last time when you and I were talking about it on accessibility for talents that one might not get access to, like in the term in like artwork. Um, of I'm just making a thing and basically need a placeholder for something, and that's, it's nice to have that.
Mm.
Even in the L&D space of maybe I do have something very specific, very unique, and I have a small budget, or I'm looking for something kind of specific, and it'd be nice to have something be able to generate kind of exactly what I'm looking for, especially for somebody like me that likes to use graphics to tell stories. I'd love to be able to have something that like is built, but also has like a speech bubble, or has something that I can that is planned to feed another element into. So I do feel that there is accessibility. Accessibility in storytelling is one of the things that I personally feels it solves. That requires a good storyteller. Um, I can't think of a single thing that AI solves that doesn't require somebody to be thinking outside the box in order to know how to use it correctly. That's where I think that's where I'm struggling the most. Kind of like how you were saying that AI has not helped you do anything better. It's help you replace it. It just helps you do something quicker, which was immediately followed up with a conversation of, but it's not doing it well. It's not really doing it to a standard. Yeah, thanks for writing a 2-pager faster, but I didn't want a 2-pager.
This is it.
Which gets into creativity of prompts and the creativity of being really specific in what you're looking for. And that goes right back into, you need to think outside of the box in order to have AI do things the way you want. I can't think of anything where AI in its current state just knows exactly the standards that somebody would want to leverage.
So yeah, I think I agree. I think there's two things in the chat actually. So I think Kara's point, Chris Hodgson's using AI to answer questions for users in learning experiences. I like the
I've
I
seen
love
Bruce
the
Almighty.
idea.
I know how that can backfire.
Yeah, I think that's it. Is
Yes,
that I
yes,
like
yes.
the idea. I've I think this is the challenge, and maybe it's different between what you're doing,
I gotta go with that.
because
Depends on the question.
working on the commercial side, I can't create or ideate or whatever a product that we're going to sell to an L&D team if it does not work 100% of the time. The problem right now with AI answering any question to anyone is 1 out of every 100 times it'll tell them to throw themselves in front of a moving car or whatever crazy ass thing comes out for some unknown reason, because we're still at the stage where especially large language models hallucinate. I love the fact that it's actually called AI hallucination. When they just make stuff up or get confused, like an elderly relative that you're asking a question to. Yes, in theory, they possess an immense amount of knowledge that they could impart to you. They might also be standing in a bucket of manure just to get rid of a cold sore. Extra points to anyone who gets that joke. So it's very tricky right now. The potential is there. The reality is just that it's not reliable enough, in my mind. Again, that might be because I'm thinking from the commercial aspect, and if you work in house, it could be within an acceptable, risk zone.
Yeah, and I want to actually double on that specifically with Morgan's coding response,
Yes.
Because one, I'm gonna go with, yeah, it could definitely help, definitely make things better. I do like the idea that it can QA. I think maybe if I think that would probably be the closest thing, is that AI can QA maybe. Here's my problem with coding as an answer, and actually, it's literally what I'm dealing with right now, which I have figured out how to get the car out of the circle. It's a pre-built design option. I've switched the design option, the pre-built thing, to something different. And now switching it back, now the actual slide is broken. It will not revert back to what it was originally, and it looks real bad. And I don't have a dang clue how to solve it anymore.
Just keep hitting Control Z, mate. Control Z.
I don't know how many buttons I clicked. I don't know how far back this goes. But it does actually kind of point out the coding problem, because again, I've worked for a lot of SaaS companies, and a lot of those have been WYSIWYG. They've been build your own editor. They've been you put something that you want to see, and the system behind it will generate all the HTML for you that's needed or something like that. And the problem with that is that though it does do that, it also, in order for it to truly function properly, long-term, grand scale, it requires a universal set of rules to follow and to be read by. I've worked for a lot of email marketing companies where I can go into a WYSIWYG editor and type in a word, and that HTML is going to come out 4 different ways depending on what system I use. They're all correct as far as that system's concerned. And then they're all going to show up in different ways based on whether or not you're looking at them in Outlook or in Gmail or something along those lines. So my argument against the AI for coding is, yeah, that only works if it's universal. which we don't have one of those. And everything that would want to read it would also be universal.
So yeah, I mean, I think the development space and coding specifically is one of the bright spots for AI. I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's particularly helpful in the L&D space because I don't think we really do enough coding to make it worth our while. Maybe an unpopular opinion. I do. I must admit now, whenever I do need code, I do go straight to it. Whether it's a couple of lines of JavaScript or trying to figure out why my JavaScript doesn't work, actually, is probably my lead use case.
Yeah,
I've put this
that's
into
QA.
this. Yeah, exactly. What have I done wrong? It should be this. Brilliant. Thank you, ChatGPT. I tend to find that pretty much everything it's created for me has worked. A lot of it has not been very efficient code.
Yeah.
It
And
tends to take the brute force approach to you want X to happen when Y happens. Okay, here's that. Exactly that. It's like,
yeah.
you know.
AI is honestly, I think the I'm gonna take anything AI and say you're rolling the dice whenever you use it. It might be great in that one instance, but long term, God, I've had to clean up code that has had 5 different people come in and make changes to it, and it's terrible. You just restart the whole thing. Anybody who has had to redo training that came from a series of developers and SMEs and a rotation of them, that's basically AI. They just wrote it. But over time, if they don't follow the same rules, maybe the prompts were different. How it expanded. I feel like over time, AI is one of those things that just leads into more problems right now in its current state. It's cute right now. It's fast food. It's functional, but it's slowly destroying us from the insides. And eventually it's going to catch up with us until somebody figures out a better way. And hopefully it's before we're too absorbed in it. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. I think with that especially, it's going to be that case of I almost want it to be attached. I want the AI to be part of the repository. So I want, as part of my GitHub repository, let's say all my code lives on GitHub because it's an open source project. I want AI to be right there with it, not a separate tool. Going back to this separate tool thing again, I want it to be part of my repository tool. So then I go to it and say, hey, based on the repository that you know, because you're in it, you are the repository. I need to add a feature that does X, Y, and Z, and it needs to blah 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 blah.
I can get on board with
Off
that.
you go. That
I can get
would
on board
make
with that
sense.
because then the standard that you're holding to is of the much greater system as opposed to Bob in his tire shop that knew how to make a GPT thing.
Yes.
Like AI being integrated into Adobe Captivate, I'm more comfortable if Adobe does it as opposed to we've partnered with, Jim's Tire Emporium Coding Center.
And this is the problem with we've integrated ChatGPT, which I get why everyone's doing it. It's easy, right? And you don't have to then develop your own anything. You're just taking an existing thing and chucking it into your thing, usually with a little ChatGPT-esque chat box somewhere. But as long as that is the level of integration that we're seeing with tools, it's kind of pointless.
Yeah. I think that's where I draw that line. Show me the company that it's not we integrated with ChatGPT, but ChatGPT integrated with us. And how we interpret them is the final word because we know our system works with everything else. Give me that. I'm going to be a lot more confident.
100%. So
I completely broke this. This thing is dead. It is. I don't even. We have gone from. I don't even know. I've got. This is what they start like. They start like this. I have now the size of it has changed, and I've lost the background, and all the text is now the same size, and it's just. I have broken this thing.
Oh dear.
So much.
I'm sure this is going to be one of those things where, like, in a couple of hours, you'll be like, "Oh, I've figured it out, and it's this, and it's done that because of that." But there is just that learning curve, right?
The design thing. I clicked off of it and I clicked back, and it was like, "No, we're not doing that." We don't like you.
We'll get
Okay.
there. But
I
cool.
got it.
So
It was a 2-pager that could have just said you suck, Joey.
give
Signed
yourself some
Adobe.
time. You'll get there. It's a new tool. Remember.
I am baffled that it changed the size. I am baffled that now I am staring at a slide that is the size of a square. That needs to not happen.
Well, they're not really slides anymore, are they? That's the thing, because you can do web page style content. So if you just keep adding stuff, the page just keeps getting bigger, which is exciting. But so yeah, let's wrap up that section, because I realize we've kind of gone from Captivate seamlessly into AI. Thank you for the segue from the chat. Finishing point there, I guess, from Morgan. Used AI to get ideas, write first versions of questions, scenario scripts, job descriptions, but I always put my touch on them before the end. This is it, and I feel like I think that's how a lot of people use this stuff right now. And I guess that comes down to personal preference. Do you find that improves your work or not? For me
It's the writer's
personally,
block flashcards, just in tech
yeah,
mode.
I guess everyone's different, right? Because I mean, like, the bits of my job where I get to sit and write for 30 minutes are the best bits of my job, without a shadow of a doubt, because I love to write. I have colleagues who consider it to be like, if it wasn't part of their job, this would be their dream job. Like, it's, for them, I'm sure that is an absolute godsend. I personally don't find it saves me any time, because I find flat or boring writing incredibly irritating to read. And so pretty much everything that I see come out of ChatGPT, I just want to burn. Because it just lacks any kind of, it doesn't even make an attempt to mimic human creativity. And that's fine, because like, it's not supposed to, but writing is inherently a creative endeavor. And I think for me personally, I don't like it, and I don't want to use it, and I don't find that it helps me. However, that doesn't mean it's a bad tool. It means it's not for me.
Right.
It's
Yeah, I mean, especially looking at coding, looking at L&D, looking at all these things where you and I have years of experience in these kinds. So you and I have developed our own systems, our own internal thought process on how we get from point A to point B to point C. For those who haven't, yeah, I'm sure it's great to start. But again, I don't see that that's not a replacement. That's not a replacement tool. And God forbid it starts. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm gonna go like conspiracy theory type of thing when we get into tools that make things easier. I'm gonna use Map. I'm gonna use MapQuest and Google Map, and I'm gonna use the conversations around how memories get, we don't get to flex the memory muscles anymore as much because we don't need to. So we get worse at it. Kind of as a society, and I kind of hope that's not where we land with this. They're doing even the basic thoughts of things, so we become less eloquent. We naturally lose our own humanity as a result of having so much be auto generated that we trick our brain. We don't flex those muscles. I know that's going into the ether maybe a little bit, but we've seen it happen with other tech that we've just taken for granted. I'm really going on memory. Like, memory is like my big one, because my memory sucks, but I also know I don't need it. I don't like that. I would rather my memory. I have now closed and just reopened the demo training that they gave me, by the way. I've just said screw it. So now we're back to the original training. I'm still screwing in Captivate. Uh-oh. And I can't hear you. Uh-oh.
There we go.
Can't hear you.
I've solved it.
Hey. Welcome back. Now I can hear you. For a second.
There we go.
There we go. All right.
Sorry, this is back. You may have. This is not the usual mic setup. I was recording some voiceover stuff this evening, and I didn't change the mic back. So this is all a little bit a little bit not the norm. Um,
Yes, yeah. He was saying that my problems mean nothing. There's no reason to care. Thank you, Tom.
I'm an inherently happy person, Morgan. I am just joy personified. You can tell because I have things like silly hats in my office. That's you know, it's how I roll. Just joy emanates from my being 24/7. And if you believe that, then you should sign up to our new monthly payment scheme. No, however, I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of broader technology adoption in L&D. Largely because I think it's fair to say I have not been a huge advocate of virtual reality in L&D. And I've kind of moved stances a little bit on that.
Okay.
I'll
wait for you on this. I'll wait for you on
yeah.
this because I'm curious.
So I got to spend some time with a couple of people recently that worked. I say recently, over the past kind of 3-4 months, really, who some specifically work in the kind of XR space, some work in the broader kind of immersive technology space,
Okay.
and one works specifically in VR.
So for context, for anybody paying attention, XR is what is it, extended or expanded reality?
Extended
Extended
reality is
reality.
XR.
It is the blend of VR, augmented reality, mixed reality. They just lumped them under one umbrella.
Yeah. Immersive technologies, we then move into things like the concept of a metaverse, not the metaverse, because that's Facebook. A metaverse.
A matrix, not the matrix.
Exactly.
Are you a Duracell battery or an Energizer battery?
The legally distinct from metaverse. And then VR is obviously specifically virtual reality. So I guess I had largely in my mind grouped that stuff together. I'd kind of split AR off a little bit because I see an immediate and have used AR for small things. QR codes on posters that pop up when you scan them on a phone and give you some information about where you are in the building. Real basic stuff. Real basic stuff, but useful. So spent some time with them, and I feel like we've become, as an industry, obsessed with the wrong things when it comes to this bit of or this area of technology. We've become very obsessed with headsets and touching and moving around in a space and that kind of thing, right? Because they're the products that we see marketed most of the time. But a lot of the virtual reality stuff that I've seen that's actually been rolled out successfully is just environments shown on a flat screen. It is an XR approach as opposed to a pure VR approach, in that they are creating an immersive experience, like an immersive training experience. The example I saw recently was in a control room for a utilities company, and everything around them was artificial. So they had screens that were going to show them things happening in the infrastructure and pipe work. They were going to get video calls from VR basic videos showing them what's going on in the pipes from engineers and things like that. They had AR mixed in so they could interact with things, but none of them were wearing headsets. They were able to move around the room, talk to each other, and interact with a virtual environment, a virtual reality, but they didn't need to have a 4.5-inch box strapped to the front of their face.
So that's metaverse style. That's like PlayStation at home. That's effectively a video game, which I'm used to applying the word simulation to that, not
except
virtual.
they're in a real room. There's 30 of them in a real control room, but what's on the screens is virtual.
Got it. So I walk up to an avatar. I move my thing. I walk up to an avatar. That avatar is not a scripted thing. That avatar could very well be a real person.
No, there's no avatars. So I'm in an actual room with 30 people, none of us wearing headsets, but we're in what we are physically in is a real control, or a training room version of a control center. There are computer screens everywhere where we do our jobs, but everything happening on those computer screens is virtual. It's a simulation. But this is virtual reality. When a video call comes in from an engineer saying, "Hey, I'm at this location, this is happening, blah blah blah," they can interact. They can say, "Oh, I can ask it questions," and it processes the questions and figures out if it has an answer for that. Once you start to think about that technology in that context, LAN for work, 100%. It makes so much more sense. And on top of all that, my biggest objection to VR is the cost of the technology.
Yeah.
I mean, setting aside Apple's total insanity, 3.5 freaking grand for a headset. Yeah, all right, go fish. Even at 200-300 quid for a headset, okay, cool. We employ 5,000 people.
Right.
Sorry, Google is having a fit and searching for stuff for me. That's unhelpful.
Good job, AI.
Yes, indeed. Well, that's just voice recognition and basic search does not qualify as AI. Damn it. Anyway, yeah. So I feel like we kind of misinterpret. Oh, I anyway misinterpret that technology as that space being very headset dominant. And in actual fact, those kinds of virtual experiences make up a huge part of what that industry is doing right now. And it's much more viable. Simpler version. At we were at an event with a company called ARUVR last month, or possibly this month, early this month, I think it was actually. It feels like a long time ago, but it wasn't. And they showed us the work they've been doing with Five Guys, the burger restaurant. It's like, what would they be using VR for, right? It makes no sense. Literally, safety training for kitchens. Where are release valves? How do you safely drain fat from a fryer? And they're not wearing headsets. They're doing it on a screen because the headset adds nothing. It's just cost. So they're just sat at a computer, but they're able to move around in the back of a kitchen, click over there and go there and crouch down and look through the screen and see what they've got. Imminently more viable in terms of they send it to everyone before they start. They can look at it on their phones. They can look at it on their PC. If they own a headset, great. By all means, sign up, but you don't have to. It doesn't add anything.
I don't think it's fair to say that's a misinterpretation of VR. I think maybe just it's evolved. Because that's not new tech, all things considered. There's been going to hospitals have those kind of training mechanics all the time, and they've never had those headsets, but they've also never called that kind of training mechanism virtual reality. They've called them simulations. They've called them even augmented. Yeah. So maybe I'll give you maybe the term is evolving, and the weird stigma around it can only be experienced in this way.
Yeah.
But cool. I might need a little bit more to just be like, it's a simulation, guys. I did that too, but that's me. Like I didn't go to the same thing you did, and I'm used to I'm staring at Captivate, which is all I've only used for simulations.
Yeah, I think this is it. I feel like a lot of technologies like that come along and they get productized so quickly that the product overshadows the technology. And
yeah, Google Glass.
Yeah, prime example. How far did Google Glass set back the idea of a daily use AI/AR solution?
They created a derogatory term for their users. Remember what it was?
Glass holes.
Glass holes. Yep. That's when you know you're in trouble.
This is it. And it's funny, like, I had this conversation there. I thought I get a bit worried sometimes that we do one of two things when a new technology comes out. And I'm guilty of both. This isn't a criticism of anyone else. This is a criticism of everyone. We either adopt it really quickly without really thinking about it very well, and then we regret it, or we're very suspicious of it and we try and poke holes in it, etc. We don't adopt it, and then we fail to see the progress it makes.
Okay.
is just kind of my thing, because I know for me, after my initial response to VR was it's expensive, what I've seen is not particularly good. Even the research that they tout often says this is as good as if you hadn't used VR for the training. So we spent 6 times as much for no additional value. Woohoo! You know, but actually things have moved on. You
Again,
know,
I will say, at the time, the only people who were talking about it in terms of calling it VR were those companies leveraging the technology that way.
Yeah, this is it.
Didn't work, so probably somebody said, "Hey, let's readjust how we call this." And you and I calling ourselves instructional designers, I think we're the perfect example of, hey, we don't actually know what we're getting out of this thing. Maybe we should adjust what the term means, which is now why instructional design means literally everything.
Yeah, this is it. And I think Kara brings up some really good points there, like infrastructure. Who owns it and how will it be supported? Privacy
Yep.
and data. What data, where will it be stored?
Mhm.
Governance. Who needs to sign off and update and maintain it? And are there upfront costs, subscriptions, how many licenses, etc.? This is it. This is so the problem with so many of these spaces is often the technology is so early when we get initially excited about it. None of those answers are there to be found because we're still trying to figure that stuff out. And
Let me ask you a question. When you finish your thought, I want to ask you a question, actually.
It's only because it was both those same examples. AI, I think, is falling foul of this right now. Where's the data? Who owns it? No one knows. Cool. So that project's dead. Will it be here in a year's time? Who knows? Dead project. How many licenses do we need? It's not really about licenses. Dead project. These are all things that businesses don't like. VR's kind of been in the same place of extremely expensive, extremely high skill requirement. You're pretty much going to have to always outsource it. But now we are starting to see the very first kind of turnkey build it yourself authoring tools for VR, which is really exciting. I know Captivate has always claimed to be one. Captivate is wrong. I'm hoping, I haven't looked at new version yet in relation to VR. I'm hoping it's better. I'm not
I can't
holding
even
out
move
hope, though.
text around. I don't even want to imagine what this thing could do with VR.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything, isn't it? It's a tool. It's you got to learn how to use it.
I want to ungroup. Dang it! Ungroup.
It shouldn't be that difficult to use, I guess, is the point. But yeah,
it took Storyline 20 years to learn how to ungroup. You could do it too.
One day, if a storyline still hasn't learned to align text properly, so maybe one day. Just little dreams.
I've got a question for you that's in line with VR, and it's in line with something else that was also cute, and then really not. It really didn't pick up, and I don't care what anybody says. I think data has comfortably shown it hasn't picked up. Do you see any evolution in training that gains traction but requires a peripheral?
Ooh.
VR struggled. The cost issue was because of a headset.
Yep.
The other thing that struggled, mobile, because it requires a phone.
Yeah.
Do you see any evolution that requires a peripheral? And if that's the case, is that just a straight up flag of if you need a peripheral, just don't touch it?
And this is tricky.
Granted, it'll matter in specific industries, like hospitals and whatnot. But like in the global, this is a trend for 2024. Do you need a peripheral? Yes. Maybe shut up about that.
Honestly, yeah. Because businesses don't want to spend money on shit. It's as simple as that. Why did mobile learning not become the dominant form of consumption? Because my mobile phone does not belong to my employer. End of discussion. That was it.
Snap. I would rather do that if I'm using the bathroom. I don't want to learn anything.
This is it. No, but now you can access your LMS anytime you want when you're at home or at the weekend. Woo!
Hey guys,
I'm excited for that one. Because that's what employees want. They don't want a fair wage increase. They don't want additional time off to spend with family and friends. No, they want to take their workplace learning home with them. Christ. I think mobile was a special example where simultaneously there was a cost implication for businesses in terms of either development of content or providing phones to people. But there was also this kind of very inward-looking arrogance within the L&D world that our people love us so much that they want to learn in their own time. No, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's
We
the
don't even love
technological
our content
elitism.
that much. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Cutting edge, cutting edge nonsense is it just hasn't worked. But no, I just thought about it. Like, with even, now we can even say that even VR seems to be transferring away from how can we get the same experience without the hardware. Don't give me the hardware.
This is it. And I feel maybe Olga's point is the way forwards. Brain implants for everyone. That's it'll happen eventually. Maybe that will be the way forwards. Maybe they'll be subsidized by the state and employers will have direct access. That's a disturbing and slightly dystopian future to look forward to, isn't it? The last comment I'm not quite sure on. We have 360 images. Someday maybe we'll have 360 images. 3D images.
3D
Oh,
images.
I get what you mean. I got you. Yeah. I think this was my thing when you get a VR situation but it has no depth. It's a 360 environment but everything's flat. It's like
it's Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Like I can walk through and see it's you, or it's Enemy of the State where I could just rotate the that was a stupid movie. But
yeah.
Whatever.
But that's a prime example of claiming to have something. You've released an MVP and you're claiming it's the finished product. I feel like that's where Captivate was with VR in what is now Captivate Classic. Yes, you could upload a 360 image and put stuff in it, but that's 360 environments, not virtual reality. There is an implied requirement for some depth to interact with. I think in a virtual environment, that's the key difference. But hey, it's not going to get too hung up on that, at least not today. But yeah, I think.
I mean, learn by doing has always been really solid, and learn by doing in a virtual environment allows you to do that in a safer space.
Yeah. No, this is it. I think, and on that principle, XR as a whole should be a very effective tool. Yeah. At the minute, there are just too many. And you need. And you need. And you needs. Once that comes down to you need some software, I think everyone will be, considering it much more realistically.
Yeah, I mean, God, I can think of so many industries where I would love, because I've worked in plenty where I was just thrown into the fire. I was like, I got to deal with it. I would have loved one example that I could have walked into.
No, absolutely. So yeah, and that's a kind of very long-winded answer to your question, but I think, as long as there's something else attached to your ability to deliver it, it's going to be a problem. It's never going to take off with that. With especially if it's not something free, or if it relies on the end user to give up something they own, because that's not acceptable anyway. That's not something we want to be encouraging as an industry. I don't think.
No, God, I hope.
So I think we've covered.
There was a time, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But now, with the quiet quitting revelations and all of those things of, what, you're gonna get from me what you're actually paying for. I am not bringing my work home and that kind of stuff.
I think rather than quiet quitting, we should just call that what it is, which is being a employee. We used to call it doing your job. Now apparently it's a form of quitting. It's very interesting.
Is that term? I don't know if that term's still a thing anymore. I think
it's on
TikTok and becomes something else now.
This is it. It kind of it had its 35 seconds in the light, and then it fled, probably back to some HR department that made it up. And
it got ChatGPT'd.
That's it. Yeah, but it did an excellent job of kind of further alienating different generations of people, which was the whole point of it existing. So yay!
Yeah,
go for separations between groups of people to ensure people don't stand together to prevent their employers taking advantage of them. Woo!
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed being part of the problem, because I like the challenge of going above and beyond sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
no, this is it.
me and quiet quitting were not friends.
So it was, yeah. I mean, it's just the everything about it was just so conceited from the beginning.
Mhm.
These people dare only do the hours that we're paying them for. How very dare them? It's like, nope. You have confused yourself with the hero in this story. You are in fact wearing a cape and have a twirling mustache.
I'm
Um,
also in the mind of like, what do you think you get with salary? Because I had some weeks where I was able to work 50 hours. You know, I had worked like 50 hours and more than I worked, and I got somewhere I got to like flex. Like,
and that's fine if you want that, but the average employee doesn't have that flexibility, and they shouldn't, in my opinion, work over.
mm,
Like
yeah, I mean,
it's
I
you know,
guess,
and only working what you are paid for should not be called quiet quitting. It should be called doing your job.
yeah.
Like if you're going to pay me to paint this car red, cool, then I will paint your car red. Why
Mhm.
haven't I painted your house? Well, because it's not your car. You know,
Yeah,
you know, it's as simple as that. Same as when an employer turns around and says, "Oh, could you just take on this additional responsibility?" Yes, certainly. And what will you be paying me to take on this extra responsibility? Oh,
yeah.
nothing. Well, then that is the level of effort I will put into this extra responsibility.
10-year retail tour of duty right here. About
But
3 of those years was being a supervisor without getting the title, just to see if I can handle those responsibilities.
exactly. And this and the problem is that the world is totally okay with that. Oh, well, retail's one of those environments where you really have to prove yourself. What you mean by that is it's an incredibly abusive industry that is toxic to everyone who works in it.
Mhm.
Fantastic. But it's okay because that's how retail's supposed to be.
Yep.
Like, what? Um,
Yeah.
but we're drifting into HR world at this point.
Yeah. On the flip side, I've gone away from the pre-built stuff, and I understand what Captivate's doing and how they're doing it. I'm like,
Hey.
oh, I know why I can't do basic things, I'm even going to be stronger in saying, if you really want to wrap your mind around how to do this stuff, go to Wix, go to Squarespace, go do those. This is pure module. It's pre-built. It's all pre-built module that you just stack,
Nice.
which is just better, and it's just better anyway. It's always cleaner, so you don't get you don't get the madness of I can put anything anywhere. And again, that's very clearly to do the responsive design stuff, but because of that, you are incredibly limited on what you can, or it looks like you're limited on what you can do. You're actually not. You just have to spell it out a lot more.
Cool.
Off to the
So
side. I get it.
let's
I understand now. It took me an hour and 47 minutes.
e- so we're coming up on the end of the show. So I guess Joey, is there anything else you want to speak about? Is there anything anyone in the chat wants to talk about before we finish up?
That's a good question. Oh, you know what? I think that I think that there is something actually that is
Ooh.
worthwhile giving a shout out. Which, since she's here, congratulations to Kara and the book, Learning
Absolutely.
Experience Design Essentials.
This
That
is it.
being
I
a
hope you've
thing,
all
and
got your copies pre-ordered.
she's got a cool launch party on July 11th, I think.
So yeah, all very exciting.
So cool for her. I'm in the. I just want to celebrate. I'm celebrating other people right now because I don't have like enough of my own little victories, as I am actively looking through. I am actively still looking to fill up my own time, and I'm a dad, so
Well,
my mind's all over the place.
that's something to celebrate in of itself, surely.
It is something to celebrate in and of itself. I also have to laugh in my job hunts that I've gotten now multiple positions that are in the marketing space because of a training project that got me fired from the company I did it for.
Nice.
I love that. It's my little spite. But anyway, that's more of a personal victory. That's not really anything to talk about more than gloat.
Fair enough.
I'm good.
I guess last little things from me then. if you are around in the UK later in the year, there are some awesome face-to-face events coming up with the Learning Network. We've got our Beyond the Basics Innovations in Workplace Learning and Development one-day conference in Edinburgh. That's free for Learning Network members, and just I think about 50 quid if you're not a member. And we have our Big Connect conference in London in November the 17th. Early bird tickets are currently available for members and non-members. We are getting some fantastic speakers. Like our keynote speakers are Michelle Harris. No, come on, load. I clicked the wrong event. I think, Michelle Perry Slater and Steve Wheeler. So really fantastic speakers. We've got Erin Donovan speaking from Fuel. She's flying in from the States. We're going to have someone speaking from ARU VR, speaking of VR tech and XR stuff. Really, really great day planned. So if you're UK based or if you're in the UK in November, it is well worth attending. Other than that, I guess really it's a case of saying thank you so much for coming to join us in our first show back after our little gap. And we shall see you next month.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT.